who got into a fight, and this big Samoan dude killed them, like physically killed one of them. It was like he was like lauded as a hero. But there were acts of subversion back on the Japanese side, and there were people who were detained. And I'm not saying that we should do that now. I think obviously it's a bit different world, but I do think we should at least like ask a few questions of the dude who's got like the Al Qaeda tattoo or whatever.
That's always my goal with these kind of things, is just to get it. Like, no one's just justifying. Well, some are justifying pulling, Muslims out of school and taking their land like we did with the Germans and the Japanese.
Do they even have any land? Like, what are they?
Yeah, they have Dearborn, Michigan.
Oh, I guess.
But I would just like the conversation to get into a more reasonable zone. It's like with abortion. I just want to get people out of third trimester abortions and down to 2 months. Or we had Lenore Skenazy here. We are allies because we're both free-range parents, but I want kids to have the same youth I had, where we shot each other with BB guns.
Yeah,
and you had to go to the hospital.
I did it anyways. I mean, I was a radical.
But she doesn't agree with me on that. But we're,
because she's a mom.
We're allies, and we have totally different views. That's how far off we've gone. So I'm not saying we need internment camps, but let's at least stop encouraging it. We all but encourage radical Islam in the West.
Well, it's cool. You got to think about, like, the kids, the Sarnaya brothers went to Cambridge Ridge in Latin, which was one of the first schools to require Howard Zinn's People's History of the United States,
right?
Which basically teaches people like America sucks,
right?
And so you come to the U.S. and you're told all this stuff about, hey, it's a land of milk and honey, there's gold everywhere. And then you get here and you go to the schools and the people are telling you, no, actually this country sucks. Like, we're oppressive, we're racist, we're all this stuff. And so you naturally look for some kind of guide to how to live your life, because you're caught, and you see the confidence, the kind of badassness of the terrorists.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I'm with these guys. They're strong. They're not pussies.
Yeah, you remind me of a funny picture I saw when I was in Madison in like the local paper, and it was during the fight with Russia and Ukraine, and it was French soldiers on the Russian side, and you go, wait a minute, they're not our ally. And I realized, no, it's just cool to fight for the enemy. They had like cool bandanas on and stuff, and fingerless gloves, and we've gone from rebellion being cool, like having spiky hair, to it's cool to die fighting your own country.
Well, and people are drawn to strength. This is what people don't really get about human psychology. People are followers. I mean, they're strong members of groups. People go and want to be attracted to it. They're attracted to strength. And when you grow up in a culture that's not really confident of itself, that mocks itself endlessly, I think it's understandable that people are drawn to terrorism.
Yeah. Well, you look at our soldiers having to walk a mile in red high heel shoes in their military gear just to represent sexism.
Yeah.
And you think, that's not a cool club to join anymore.
No, and they used to be able to beat you up and break you down and do all kinds of nasty things, read out your letters and that you got from girlfriends. The drill sergeant would read it out and make fun of you. There was a kind of level of taking people apart and building them up that was a big part of the military. And Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Islam, whatever you want to call it, it offers people at a time when they're trying to discover how they fit in the universe. They're in this culture where they're constantly told by all the social justice warriors that America's racist, that they can never really be a part of America. And they're sold this bullshit by the media, by their friends, by their
professors and teachers, yeah.
In reality, most of us don't really care, because most of us kind of like, oh, okay, there's this brown chick in my class. She's kind of hot or whatever. She's fat. She's like, most of us don't really care, but they're going through this like deep psychological thing. And it's understandable that they're looking for some kind of belonging. And meanwhile, they see their parents, who are usually immigrants, who are probably pretty smart, but they probably don't have the quality of life that all the white people that they see on TV do. I mean, imagine just watching America just from our commercials, right? You'd probably like hate America too. I mean, there's a lot of like bullshit that you see there.
Well, the funny thing about America and our commercials is wealthy middle-class white people are always used for everything. So if they're doing a thing about gun control, and they'll have a kid crawling upstairs playing hide and seek, playing with a handgun and blowing his head off. And
Sure.
you look at the house and you go, oh, so what's your dad? Like the top broker at Goldman Sachs? Those people don't have handguns lying around.
Sure.
90% of accidental handgun shootings are some single mom. She's dating a gangster. He doesn't realize that he left his Glock lying around, and one of her six kids
as happens.
blows his head off. But they don't want to show that because it looks racist, so they end up just putting out false information. Like the New York Times had a thing about gun violence, and they've got this. They found one white middle-class dad showing his son how to shoot a .22, and that
like
son happened to die.
Which is like a cap gun. I mean, I don't even know how you kill yourself with a .22.
I don't know if it was a .22 that eventually
Shoot yourself
killed
in the
the
nose
boy.
or something. I mean,
I hate to be laughing over the
terrible.
body of a dead boy right now, but the real, those real cases are single mom cases. They're black cases. They're ghetto cases. But they don't want to do that, so they show you these rich, literally the top 1%.
Because they're trying to sell fear. I mean, it's really what it's about.
Well, it also might be. I argued with Tom Shalhoub about this. He goes, "You don't want to see that on your TV." Like when they're doing an insurance commercial, they'll show a family together, and they'll show a massive home, and it'll be about child deaths. That was the Super Bowl ad,
Right.
And he goes,
which was hilarious.
But
by the way.
he goes,
the jokes off of that were, I mean, they were fantastic. Dead baby jokes are always funny. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
I don't know. I'm a little sensitive about them, but he goes, you don't want to see real homes where real accidents happen when you're watching the Super Bowl. It's depressing.
I guess. I mean, there's something about how the media sells us on these kind of mental images, these kind of imagined communities that they all imagine that we live in. And most people, I think, just think it's bullshit. Like, I can't even remember the last time I really sat down and watched an event that had commercials other than the Super Bowl, which I was drunk through most of. Mm-hmm. I mean, this kind of like thing isn't quite working now, but I think the real propaganda that's starting is like the horizontal shaming of like the social justice warriors saying you can't get ahead. And the president says this too. He says, you can't get ahead if you're this group or that group. And we see that stuff and we're like, you start to kind of internalize it, especially when you're growing up. And I bet every one of these kids who are of Muslim ancestry or whatever, they experience some microaggression, which really means somebody was mean to me once. Or they have a stare and they assume that it's racist, when really it's just like, this person doesn't look like all the other people in Alabama or rural Michigan. And they therefore start to internalize the otherness of themselves. And a certain percentage of those people go into some more extreme politics. And if you go and join the mosque, which for many people is a source of identity and a source of a refuge from kind of the modern world, they have a lot of answers to young people trying to find themselves. All the answers are shit, but a lot of people are attracted to shitty ideas.
Well, there might be something innate about, and I'm not sure if it's Westerners or white people, but I think there's a genetic self-hatred in there, and maybe that's why Christianity did so well with white people in particular, because there's this need to self-flagellate. There's this need to, I know, I'm so sorry, and I ruined everything. What have I done? I know I sound like an old Jewish man.
I mean, to a certain extent, you've got the genetic side of it where...
Because, sorry to interrupt, but we're blaming the media here. And the media is really driven by supply and demand. So
sure.
I think there is a real demand from the customers to say, make me look terrible, blame the world on me.
Maybe, but I mean, how representative is New York, the New York Madison Avenue group that's making these things from the actual real population of the country? Not very. So they do sell a lot of shit that's nonsense, and advertising, as you know, is probably the most non-accountable dollar out there as far as actual real-world efficacy of the message that you're propagating.
But the whole, we ruined the Indians, killed them all,
sure,
stole their land, then brought in slaves. Slaves built America, and we're all living off that hard work that they made. They built all our buildings and made everything great.
Unless you're Ben Affleck. And you can't acknowledge it. You can't pay your reparations.
That narrative, and we cheated, basically. That narrative is, the only people that don't have it are Republican males.
Well, really anyone who reads the history of the U.S. I mean, the trick is to make people stupid. And to make them stupid, you have to sell a certain idea of the world. And when you go to school, I went to this really rich, Tony prep school where I was a scholarship winner there. And they were selling us all this nonsense about Howard Zinn and how the U.S. sucks and all this stuff. And I was looking around me, and I was like, you're an error. Like, you're like fourth generation money. You're this. Like, America's been pretty good to you. Like maybe we should learn something here. And it's always like, now